Hi guys, welcome to our next lesson in our Learn Music Theory series. So I'm just going to review a couple things, clarify a couple things, and then we'll start a new topic. Today's topic is intervals. So let's talk about accidentals first. Accidentals, if we look at our keyboard, are the black keys. The set of 2, the set of 3, the set of 2, if we're looking from middle C up. Those are accidentals. You can remember it by sometimes we accidentally play them. So we have a sharp, which looks like a pound sign. We have a flat, which looks like a crooked B, lowercase b. And when we write them, I got it previously wrong in our other video, and sometimes I make mistakes, so I'm just going to clarify it. We draw a black note. We draw a black note. The sharp symbol and the flat symbol always go to the left of the note, always. And it's because if you're a composer, you want to stay consistent so the performer doesn't get confused. So when they look at a note, they know exactly what to expect. And if you're a performer, when you look at your sheet music, you want to make sure there's no surprises and that the sharps and flats are always in the same spaces. So always write it to the left of the note. That's an accidental. It's a sharp or a flat. It either raises a note or lowers a note. A sharp raises a note, a flat lowers a note. So if we look at our keyboard, we look at where it says middle C. The first black key is either a C sharp if we're raising the C, or it's a D flat if we're lowering the D. And when we have a note that has two different names but sounds the same, we call that enharmonic. So that first black key in between middle C and D is either a C sharp or a D flat, depending on the context of the music. Sounds the same, but is spelled differently. And that's the next thing I was going to clarify, which is enharmonic. So this note is C sharp. This note is D flat. Sounds the same, but on a piece of music would look different. And we'll get to why that is. Alright. So we talked about the chromatic scale. And we started to use what the names of the lines and spaces are in some sort of context. And so a scale is a series of pitches starting on one pitch and ending on another pitch. Or a scale is a series of notes starting on one letter name and ending on that same letter name. So in the chromatic scale, we talked about... Oh, my bad. Alright, we talked about middle C. So that middle C up to the next C, including all of the black keys, is a chromatic scale. It's the C chromatic scale. It includes all of the white keys and all of the black keys. Now, if we look at middle C and we go to, well, let's just call it D flat. We go C to D flat, which is the first black key next to middle C. If we go one note next to the other note, that's called a half step. So if we go C, D flat, that's a half step. We're moving one note at a time. So when I say chromatic scale is a stepwise scale, that's what that means. It means we're going one note at a time all the way up from one starting pitch, middle C, to the same of a higher octave, the next C. C to C with all black keys. Alright? So now we're going to take a break from the scale. We're going to break that scale down into what each smaller shape is. So in our first video, we learned about our lines. It's called a staff. I'm going to write one right now. And we said the names of these lines and spaces, starting at the first line is E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F. We also said there could be lines up here or lines down here. We call those ledger lines. So let's erase our ledger lines. Let's draw our treble clef. The swirly part always goes around G for a reference if you need it. Our treble clef. And we're going to start by writing the first part of our C chromatic scale. The reason why we're starting on the note C is because it's easier to understand the concept. So let's talk about C, which is the first ledger line below the first line. And let's talk about the next note, which we said was D flat. Now remember I said this could be C sharp, but we're going to use, when we're talking about intervals, we're going to use one letter name to the next letter name. So if we're talking about a second, for example, we're going to talk about C to D. All right? So in this case, we're talking about C to D flat, the first two notes of our chromatic scale. Let's look at our keyboard. C, then the note right next to it, which is D flat. Let's hear it. Let's hear it played together. Sounds kind of dissonant. That's because the notes are close together. They're right next to each other. Let me move so you can see the notes written. That's what it looks like written on the staff. C, D flat. And that's a minor second. We call that a minor second. Why is it minor? Well, does it sound happy-ish or sad-ish is what I like to say. So for example, what does this sound? Does this sound happy or sad? Or this one? It's probably a better example. Versus this one. So one sounds happy, one sounds sad. So in this case, we're doing C to D flat. It sounds sad-ish, but this sounds really tense. Maybe a little frustrated sounding. You know, I'm using emotions to describe it. But you can just hear the tension between them because the two frequencies are really close together. And that's a minor second. And this is how we write it. C to D flat. Minor second. All right, now let's go to our next one. Let's erase the flat. And now we're just focusing on C to D. It looks like this on the board. Boop. Here's how it sounds. Lower register. Here's how it sounds together. That's a major second. Hear how it sounds different from this one? And that's the next note in our chromatic scale. Major second. So we have C and D, and we say it's a second because it's two letter names. C, D. Alright, let's do our next one. We're going to keep the C as our first note because we're just breaking our chromatic scale down. And we're going to talk about a third. So all we do is count three letter names away from C. So we have a C, that's one. We have a D, that's two. We have an E, that's three. That's the third. But remember, we're talking about our chromatic scale, so we're talking about every note that's right next to each other. So this is going to be called an E flat. So we have C. We have the next note, which is the D flat. Then we have the D. And now we're going to the E flat. Here's the C to E flat. Here it is together. We call that a minor third. Does it sound happy-ish or sad-ish? Play it higher. Minor third. Alright, so now let's go to our next third, and it'll be the next note in the chromatic scale, which is E. So we erase the flat. Notice the notes are still 3 letter names away. C, D, and E. Okay? So C to E. Whoop, excuse me. C to E. Together. Now hear the difference between a minor third and a major third. This is the one that's written on the board, C to E, which is a major third. Alright. So we're going to do one more, and then I'm going to stop the video and make a second video, which will be part 2. Because we got a lot more to cover, but I want to keep the videos short and concise. So we'll do one more. So the next one, actually let's do it like this. We talked about seconds, we talked about thirds. What do you think we're going to talk about next? Fourths. So if we start on C, and we just go up 4 letter names, we have C, which is 1, D, 2, E, 3, F, 4. Just the alphabet. C, D, E, F. So C to F is a fourth. Remember, there was no black key in the middle of E and F. C, D, E, F. And it looks like that. C to F is a fourth. Here's how it sounds. Oh, sorry, let me do it again. Now, notice it has more of an open sound than, let's say, the third. Because the notes are farther away. That's a perfect fourth. There's no minor fourth, there's no major fourth, it's just a perfect fourth. That's what we call it. Alright guys, so I'm going to stop the video here. I'm going to make part 2 covering the rest of the intervals in the chromatic scale. And you can watch that in your own time. If you would like more practice or some help, you can always ask me. I would be willing to Skype or email or answer questions. You can also go to musictheory.net, and there they have interval recognition as far as what it looks like on a piece of music, how you write it. So you can, it actually gives you exercise. It'll flash a bunch in front of you, and you just select the one you think it is. You should do that. And then it also has interval training as far as listening to them, like when I was playing them. So you would know the difference between what is this interval and what is this interval. Right? Minor second or a perfect fourth. If you want to be able to name them really quickly, you can go to musictheory.net. There's exercises on there as well. It's a great resource and it's completely free. I'll see you in the next video.